Well, that was a movie.
Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my first thoughts on Cobweb, which was directed by Samuel Bodine and starring Woody Norman, Lizzie Kaplan, Anthony Starr, and Cleopatra Coleman. It was also written by Chris Thomas Devlin, whose only other major credit was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake in 2022. So, not a great credit there. By the way, it was also produced by Seth Rogen, and I think that's a little bit noticeable in here because despite this movie being a horror movie, there's definitely some funny comedy feeling moments to this movie, but I'll get there in a minute. So anyway, this movie was released a little bit ago. I think it was actually the exact same weekend as Barbie and Oppenheimer, so it really didn't stand a chance. Nobody went and saw it, but it ended up getting a cult following, and so now is being re-released in October for Halloween, and so I decided I'll check it out, even though it has a really bad rating. Currently it has a 5.9 on IMDb and a 50% on Metacritic, but like I said, it's got a bit of a cult following and it's being re-released, so I decided why not give it a shot. It was kind of a weird decision to release it in the summer. Really, horror movies only get released a couple times a year, and that's at the beginning of the year in January, February, when there isn't really anything else being released, so there isn't any competition, and in October around Halloween, because that's when everybody wants to go see movies. You don't really release a horror movie in the summer unless you really think it can compete with the Barbies, the Oppenheimers, Marvel movies, stuff like that. Really only Jordan Peele movies can really get away with that, because for the most part, horror movies aren't going to have the kind of draw that will allow them to compete with a blockbuster like that. So maybe that was the problem. No. The problem was it wasn't a good movie. So when I first saw the trailer, I thought it looked interesting. Frankly, it looked like a more adult take on Coraline. Like, it appeared in the trailer that what was going on was something to do with there was this kid that was being terrified by these evil versions of his parents. In fact, in the trailer you see them kind of looking creepy and even doing what looked to be a reference to the Babadook with how the mom was standing. She kind of had her hands splayed out. It looked like the Babadook, but regardless, it looked like the movie was doing that kind of Coraline thing where they were in some sort of like alternate reality maybe, or maybe the parents had been killed and replaced by demons. We weren't really sure based on the trailer, but I'm letting you know now, that's not what the movie's about. That's actually one scene that has nothing really to do with the rest of the movie. Kind of followed the same route as The Night House, unfortunately, where the marketing was just way off base. You show one scene that is out of context and makes the movie look like it is completely different than it actually is. This movie, to me, is just a pass. I would skip it. It's not good. I mean, maybe actually if you go see it with some friends and you want to have a stupid horror movie to watch with friends for Halloween, it could be good for that. It is pretty stupid. It is pretty funny at times, but overall, I would give it a 3. I thought it was pretty bad. It was one of the worst movies I've seen this year. It really it kind of failed on most levels. I will say the positives about this movie is the set design's really cool. The house, I think, is pretty clearly not a real house because the ceilings are just way too high. It doesn't look like a real house, but that also makes it look cool, you know? There's the way the house is made to look old and kind of disheveled and beat up and then have these really high ceilings, and because of that, then they're able to have really cool shots in there. The cinematography is also really good for the most part, and the lighting with, like, there's a lot of shadow work. Like, there's a character over here and two characters talking over here, and you just see their shadows being projected up against this other character and on the wall, so there's a lot of cool looking shots in there. I will also say that this movie does a good job of kind of making you guess where it's going to go next. But for me, that's where the positives end, because once you do realize where the movie's going, it's a disappointment. Things don't make sense as far as character choices and what they're choosing to do and how they're acting don't make any sense. Little things are just distracting. Like, this may sound stupid, but it's like, it's just distracting when you make characters not act like real people, and it can be just something as silly and stupid as, like, they're eating dinner, which I forget what it was. It was like meatloaf or steak or something, like just something cow-based, and they're eating that, but but then they're drinking orange juice, and it's like, who in their right mind drinks orange juice with dinner, especially this kind of dinner? It's just like, stuff like that shouldn't be important, but it's like, if you're trying to make something realistic, trying to make something believable, you want to eliminate all distracting things in there, and that was so distracting that I couldn't pay attention to what they were talking about. I'm like, why are you drinking orange juice right now? But anyway, yeah, I just, not a fan. Even the acting wasn't good, and I'm a fan of the cast. Anthony Starr and Lizzie Kaplan, I think I've seen both of them in very limited roles, but I like them in them typically. Also, Woody Norman, I was ranting about when Come On, Come On came out a couple years ago. I thought he was fantastic in there. I was like saying he should get at least Oscar nominated for his role. I think he should win Best Supporting Actor for his role in that movie. I thought he was phenomenal. Didn't really like any of the cast in this movie, and so I kind of have to blame the writing and directing, because I know that they're good actors, so it has to be something else. Some of the dialogue is really bad, so that could be part of it. Also, the directing, like I said, it just didn't feel right. It felt kind of goofy. It kind of felt funny at times rather than scary, and also just not believable. So that's what I think. Without getting into spoilers, I'm going to get into them now. Click away if you don't want anything spoiled. Come back and we can talk about it then. So, spoilers. Yeah, so the point of this movie, the scariness of this movie, the horrors of this movie, you think at first have to do with the parents. And like I said in the trailer, you think it's this Coraline type situation, but it's not. It's nothing like that. What is actually happening is they're trying to protect the kid, the boy, from something deeper and more sinister. There is a voice coming from the walls that at first you think is trying to help him. Well, actually, at first you think is creepy. Then you start to think, oh, it's helping him. And then you realize again, no, it's actually creepy. And what it turns out to be is his sister has been locked in the walls by his parents. And it turns out for good reason, because his sister is a spider lady demon creature thing with really long hair. Hence the Cobweb, because spider. Mainly just like a spider because she can climb on walls, which her reasoning is because she's been trapped in the wall so long, she learned how. Kind of reminded me of Man of Steel, when it's like, I'm going to teach myself how to fly by just jumping really hard, and I'll get there eventually. It's like, no, you're not going to become a spider just because you just teach yourself to climb on the walls for years. That's not how it works. But anyway, that's what they do. They do a decent job of hiding her at first. The less you see of her, the better. That's typically how these horror movies go. Once you see the monster, it's kind of disappointing. That's why so many people didn't like Smile. Smile was fantastic up until the end when you see the monster. It's such a letdown, and that's how this was too, except for it never was really good. But then it's just such a disappointment when you see that monster. You're like, that's not scary. It looks silly, and I just can't take anything seriously anymore. So they do a pretty good job hiding her at first, but then you see her and you're like, man, that's dumb looking, and I'm not scared at all. I'm not invested at all. I'm kind of laughing about it. So that is one positive, but everything else is just bad. And they do some really weird stuff with the parents, where it's like, if you were trying to then do a plot twist where actually they're the good guys and they're trying to protect him, nothing they do makes sense. They ground him by locking him in the basement, chaining him to the floor or whatever, and it's like, that's not what good parents do. I don't care I don't care if they're trying to protect him or not. You're not going to chain him down. And then they're gaslighting him when they're coming out. It's like, see, like, we love you and we're doing this to help you. And it's like, it's just, abusive. They're being abusive this whole time. So it's like, you can't then twist it and say, no, actually they were the good guys. Because they weren't. They were creepy as hell. And then, like I said, there's that one scene in the trailer where they're being creepy, but that's just a dream, and that has nothing to do with anything, so that's really lame that they would do that. I hate when they do that in movies, especially then when they're advertising that in the trailer like it's the main point of the movie, and it definitely wasn't. But also, just the dream comes out of nowhere and goes nowhere. It's like he's starting to distrust his parents, I guess, and so that's why they do it. But it's like, that just, it had nothing to do with anything. And now it just made me wish that was the movie, because that could have been a much better movie. I mean, I like Coraline. If we went a Coraline route, that would have been awesome. Or frankly, we're copying a million movies. This also felt a lot like The Babadook and Antlers and a bunch of other things. All better movies, and you just copied these other things, but just didn't do it as well. And then, like I said, just ultimately wasn't scary and was kind of funny. And the main thing to me that was funny was the ending of this movie, because this movie goes on too long. This whole time he's communicating with this thing in the wall, and eventually he finds out how to let it out. There's a door behind this clock in his parents' room, so after he murders his parents, he poisons them with rat poison. This movie just immediately plummets after that moment, by the way. He then lets her out, he unlocks the door, and she gets out, and then is getting ready to go on a rampage. But unfortunately for her, there's nobody in the house but the little kid, and so there's not much of a rampage to go on. So luckily, conveniently, for the plot, there are some people that come over, because it's Halloween, and also there's this kid that he broke the leg of because this kid was bullying him, so then the voice convinces him to get back at him, and he pushes him down the stairs and he breaks his leg. So now this kid and his older cousins or whatever come over. They've got some creepy purge-like masks on, baseball bats, hockey sticks, and they're gonna mess with him on Halloween night. But they go inside, see puddles of blood everywhere from the murder of the parents, and just go, oh, that's weird. Let's look around the house, like morons. And then one by one they get picked off and killed by this monster. And it's shot like a comedy. Like, if you just change the music, change the sound effects, this movie would have been hilarious in this moment, because it's like they're getting hooked off screen, you know, like the cheesiest classic horror way possible, where they're like, woo! You know, and then, like, there's a doorway. One character is viewing this other character who's, like, around the doorway, like, no, don't let them get me, and then they slide up the wall, and it's like, that's just silly. It's funny. Like, you can't do that and be taken seriously anymore. But to me, the funniest part was there's this moment where this character is walking over to the piano because he sees, like, the hair on the piano, and he's like, what is that? And then the monster's under the piano, grabs him by the ankles, and pulls him underneath. And as he's going under the piano, simultaneously, it's like he's going into like a shredder or something, because simultaneously blood splurts out. It is a singular motion, just an exchange of person for blood. And so it's like he went into the shredder and just spews out. And having now edited a movie, I can see this scene and know exactly what went wrong. Because he goes under, we cut to a different room in the house, but what is transitioning us through that cut is his scream. He has a scream that carries on past the cut into the next scene. Why is there a scream? Because as I described, he's being absolutely torn to pieces, instantaneously dead. And the scream happens after he's under the piano. All this gore has already been pushed out, thrown out. He is gone. He's dead instantly. And not only that is he already dead and he cannot scream, the scream that they use is obviously added in post because it's the wrong kind of scream. It's like the kind of scream you'd hear when somebody's like falling. Like, oh, not a, I'm being torn apart kind of scream. It's the wrong kind of scream. And so it's like you just know that the editor was sitting there going, this scene doesn't hit right. There needs to be more noise, because he just gets snatched away, and there's a splurt of blood. So the splurt of blood sound effect is just, and then you're on to the next scene. That doesn't hit hard enough. What can I do? I guess I'll add a scream. But the scream doesn't make any sense. So it actually takes away from the scene instead of adding. So you kind of just feel for the editor, because he was given something that was just broken and he couldn't fix it no matter what he did. And so he tried, but it didn't work. So yeah, like I said, I just feel bad for the editor in that moment. Yeah, the movie is just really bad from that moment on, and it ends up ending with, like, they lock the thing in the basement, and she had the whole movie been talking with this cute little girl voice. It's kind of like common and creepy in horror movies, but then once her true form is revealed, she's got this weird old witch voice or whatever, and it's just not scary at all. You should have just stuck with the little girl voice. It would have been creepier. And so she's going on this monologue about, like, I'm always going to be with you because we're related, I'm in your blood or whatever. And so it's like him, he's like imagining it, but it also may be happening later down the road. Like, he's always going to be scared that she's there, and it's so lame and such a bad ending. And it's frustrating because it's like the movie never worked at any point, but there was potential early on. Like I said, I'm a fan of the cast, and like, you wanted it to work, but it never did. But then when that reveal happens and the story actually starts being its own thing, it's god awful. But like I said, even in the first half, which is like the good half, there's still nothing. Like I was saying, that the motivation of these characters doesn't make sense. So if you are saying that these parents are evil, which is we're led to believe they are for the first half of the movie, and I get that they actually weren't, but regardless, it doesn't make any sense. They've locked their child in the basement, and the teacher is fearful for him. She knows that something's going on, she can't tell exactly what. He just beat up a kid, even though she knows he's a good kid, so why did he do that? Let me pay a visit to his parents and see if he's handling his expelling from school very well. So she goes there, and the mom is very like, oh, you go away, you're not his teacher anymore. And then the dad is trying to be like nice and be like, see, you don't have to worry, we're good parents. Why don't you come inside and we'll talk? But they're sitting in the kitchen talking while with the kid chained up in the basement right below them. So naturally, yeah, he goes up the stairs and starts banging on the door and screaming. Now, at first, the washing machine's running so she can't hear anything, but then the washing machine stops so she hears it, and then he's like, I think it's time for you to go. It's like, well, yeah, you're a moron. You never should have welcomed her in the first place. I'm not saying you should abuse your kids and chain them down in your basement, but if you're going to, you should be smarter about it. That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, it's dumb. The movie's dumb. Nothing that happens makes sense. The motivations don't make sense. Nothing is explained at all. Like, oh, there was a kid down the street that died on Halloween one time. Was that supposed to be their old kid? Is that what we were alluding to, or is that just random? Because we never explain it. Also, why is their child a demon? We never get into that. I don't know. Nothing about it makes any sense. They don't explain anything. They don't make anything interesting. It's all just these vague, weird things that don't go anywhere and don't matter. And it's like, if they knew that the voice he was hearing in the wall was his sister, then why didn't they do something about it sooner? They're just saying, it's rats, don't worry about it. It's like, or maybe you could just move instead of putting rat poison in the hallway, like that's going to do anything. If you know it's your daughter, then you know that's not going to help. So what are you doing? And you should move away and get away from her. If I don't know. Nothing about it made sense. It's a bad movie. It's not scary. It's dumb. It's filmed like a comedy, even though it's supposed to be scary. Nothing works about it. So, yeah, definitely skip it, unless you want to laugh at it. It's good for that maybe once. I don't think it's, like, even that memorable for that kind of thing. But, you know, it could be fun one time. If you got nothing better to do around Halloween, go for it. You know, maybe sneak in some drinks or something. I don't know. Have a good time if you can. But definitely don't go in expecting something good. This movie didn't need to be brought back to theaters. I guess there's just that few horror movies coming out this year. I mean, there are some. I don't know. Not good. Anyway, that's what I think. What do you guys think, though? If you've seen it, let me know in the comments below. And, of course, don't forget to like, share. If you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.